When I can't do what I want to do, I do what I can do. Do what you can do today. There's days where you're physically in pain and you can't do it. Do what you can do. And to me, it's like, I don't want to die someday. And I hear the man up top being like, man, you never stepped into that best version of you. I had something else planned for you and you never stepped into it because you were scared and you were content with doing things the way that you do them and you never stepped in that. That's the one thing I don't want to hear. I don't think anyone wants to hear that. How do you step into the best version of you, whatever you're supposed to do? You want to get to another level with your energy and mindset, and you want to become even more resilient.
And what would you tell somebody that they're just living that comfortable life and they're in that cycle?
I would say run to the heat. Run to the heat.
Welcome back, you guys, to another episode of the Beyond the Scale podcast. I'm your host, Mary Katherine, and I am so excited about today's guest. Today, we have Todd Durkin, who is an internationally recognized strength and conditioning coach, sought-after keynote motivational speaker, and best-selling author who motivates, educates, and inspires people worldwide. He is the mindset coach and trainer behind some of the world's best athletes, including NFL MVPs, Super Bowl champions, Heisman Trophy winners, Olympic and X Game gold medalists, and many other champion athletes, leaders, and entrepreneurs. As a founder of the Fitness Quest 10 in San Diego, California, he is trusted by some of the world's leading global brands to deliver motivational keynotes and inspirational messages to teams, companies, and conferences to help individuals and teams go from high performance or previously high performers to elite performance by helping them recapture their energy, mojo, and their mindset. Durkin has published 4 best-selling books: Get Your Mind Right, The Wow Book, The Impact Body Plan, and What's Next, all of which have changed tens of thousands of lives. He has an award-winning podcast called The Todd Durkin Impact Show and a Dose of Durkin email newsletter sent out weekly with motivational tips and inspirational messages designed to get your mind right. So sign up for that today. It is an absolute honor to have him on the show. Welcome, Todd Durkin.
Okay, thank you so much. It's so good to be here with you and to have a conversation and share with all your loyal followers and listeners. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. I've been so excited about this. And just to share with our listeners, so I actually met Todd for the first time at a Fit Body Mastermind about, a year and a half ago in Florida. And it was such a pleasure to just sit there in the room and learn from you. I'd always kind of watched you as afar, but to be able to learn from you in person was so impactful. And like ever since then, I've just been addicted to your energy and just the positivity that you bring to the space. And like you were just one of those people where when you hop on social media, if you were having the worst day ever, you always have some sort of inspirational message that can just pick you up. And I so appreciate that. So I just love that about you and your personal brand. It's fantastic.
MK, thank you. I mean, that's what I love to do. That's who I am. It certainly doesn't mean I don't have tough days or bad days or haven't been through some challenging times. I just, my mindset is something that I'm blessed with. And I love putting things out in the world because if there's ever a time that the world needs just a little bit more light, I think it's now. And I know, MK, that you and your husband and your team and your community are doing exactly that. So that's just what I do in my neck of the woods.
Yeah, great. So I want to start off with just kind of educating our listeners on how you got started in the fitness space. So, you have succeeded remarkably as a strength and conditioning coach over the years, a motivational speaker and author. Can you share with us what initially sparked your passion for fitness when this all first started?
Man, it was a mistake. It was I was actually at school back that way. I went to William and Mary in Virginia. I was a football player. My dream was to play in the NFL. And from the time I was 5, I grew up in New Jersey until through high school. I earned a scholarship down to William and Mary, and my goal and dream was to play in the NFL. When I was done with William and Mary, I did not get drafted, so I went overseas to the World Football League and to European professional football. And it was there that I suffered a devastating back injury, 3 herniated discs, spinal stenosis, degenerative back disease. I was 25 years old. I already had my degree in kinesiology. I had gone to massage therapy school in one of my off seasons. I had my personal training and my strength and conditioning certifications, which I was loading up on in my off seasons. But when that happened at the age of 25, MK, it's one of those times in my life that I did so much soul searching that, like, man, which direction am I supposed to go? I have my degree, yes, I have these certifications, but those are all backup plans. Like, if
Yeah.
football didn't work out, then I've got a backup plan, and all of a sudden that backup plan was the plan, but I didn't know what that really meant. So through this long circuitous route of really healing my own back. I mean, I was on Vicodin. I couldn't get off Vicodin. I was then eventually able to fly back to the U.S. after 3 months because I was in such devastated back pain that I got back to the U.S. And sometimes you have these, quote, chance encounters with people that appear in your life that take you in a different direction than you can envision. And I met this guy named Michael King. Michael King, he owned King World Productions. I'm like, King World Productions? Wait, that's the guy that produces Oprah Winfrey and Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy and all these shows. And next thing I know, Michael and I hit it off. I begin training him and doing all his body work. And he was, at the time, a 50-year-old guy with back pain. And I'm a 25-year-old guy with back pain. But I was an athlete, and he had the athlete mindset. And next thing you know, I'm headed to Malibu, California, to live in Malibu and train him and all of his Hollywood friends. And MK, I never still don't understand the Hollywood world like I do the athlete world. I mean, you name an athlete on pretty much any sport, I could tell you the backup, the third string. I can go through all these, and I know most of the men and women in a lot of the sports. But when it comes to Hollywood, I don't know a lot of the actors and actresses, maybe like the top A-listers, but that world isn't just part of like that's not where I go. And next thing I know, I'm training all these Hollywood people. And I think part of it was like, I didn't really care who they were because it was like, that's not my world.
Yeah.
And just through a long circuitous route, how I got in the field was that open up door that led me to live in 13 different cities in just a few years, to really just try to heal my own back pain because my back was so jacked up. And lo and behold, I eventually landed in San Diego, California, because my beat up old 1987 Volvo would have never made it back across the U.S. And I ended up going back to grad school. Something in my gut, my intuition said, it's not about the money. It's, you got to keep going deeper in your own walk.
Mhm.
And I gave up that world in LA to go back to grad school. And on the first day, I met my future wife, which has now 23 years later grounded me here in San Diego. Not a bad place to be. And I get to travel and do what I do now. But I started my gym, to answer your question, a long roundabout way, is I started my gym in year 2000, January 2000. I started Fitness Quest 10. And next thing I know, no clients, no money, no business plan. Let's figure out a way to help people in my community. And you got to remember, MK, in year 2000, different than today. I mean, you look at all the Fit Body boot camps that are out there and different studios and, gyms. It was all about big box gyms then. There weren't small training studios. There were a handful in the US. It wasn't in vogue. Now, obviously, it's much different. It's a much more competitive space. There's brands and micro, facilities all over the place. But that was the beginning, and that led me into a career the last almost 25 years now, just with the brick and mortar, into what I do now as a life transformer.
Wow. So I want to unpack some of that a little bit. And I so appreciate how you so humbly say that you've trained all of these celebrity trainers, and to you, it's like no big deal. I love how you say that in a way that's like, they're just another person. But at the
Mm.
same time, I'm sure you've met so many incredible people, as you mentioned, along this journey. And going even back to that first person you met, Mike, I think you said his name was.
Michael King, yeah.
Yeah, Michael King. I mean, just talk about the way you meet people in your life at the right time and you don't even realize like what's happening in that moment. And
Yeah.
I've had so many instances like that too, where it's truly incredible. Like the way, I mean, for me, it's like I see the way God's working in my life and how He just plants these people when I need them. And I don't know why they're being planted in my life, but it ends up turning into something so beautiful. And look what it did for you. I just, oh, I love that.
It, yeah, I call it, you got to play in the game of life. You got to play.
Hmm.
What does that mean? What I'm really about now is be in the room, show up, show up. So if you have big dreams and aspirations, well, then maybe it's time for you to go to a retreat or go to the conference that you've always wanted to go to, or go to the event that you've been looking at for years. But we build excuses why we can't do that. Because what I often find is when you get outside your comfort zone or your traditional routine and you step into a conference like where we met MK and why we're doing this now, you go outside your comfort zone, you show up, and the next thing you know, you meet someone and you connect, and they're like, wait, have you met this person? Or you meet that person, and they lead you to your next step.
Right.
And that's the way my life has been. It's always 2020 in hindsight, but when you're going through it, you have no idea of some of those people and what they can do. Because when I showed up at my sister's day spa in New Jersey, I've got 5 sisters. When I showed up at my oldest sister's day spa in New Jersey, I didn't know that I would meet Michael King's wife, who led me to, oh my gosh, my husband has bad back pain. Can you work with him? Absolutely, I can work with him.
Yeah.
Didn't really know who he was, except most people in that world do. And then Michael introduces me to all of his people. And next thing I know, I'm living in what's called Malibu Colony, and my next door neighbor is Tom Hanks, and literally
Hmm.
like a door away, and then Rob Reiner, who I had no idea who Rob Reiner was, like a big Hollywood producer. I never heard the guy's name. People are like, are you crazy? Like all these folks. So I think meeting the right people, and you don't have to meet quote celebrities or athletes. It's when you get outside your comfort zone and you network and you
Hmm.
socialize and you go in and you do your own deep introspection and deep dive. You're in the room, in the right room. Next thing you know, you start meeting people, and those people help you open your own world of your dreams, your visions of what you want to do, and you connect the dots. And next thing you know, you're making progress and getting momentum to ultimately live your true north star, your divine uniqueness, as I would call it.
Yes. So this is not a question on my list here, but what would you tell somebody? So say there's a client listening to this and they're
Mm.
so scared of getting outside their comfort zone and they're so scared to get in the room. Maybe it applies to them just stepping into the gym for the first time. What would you tell somebody that's in they're just living that comfortable life and they're in that cycle and they're just so afraid to do anything outside the norm? What would you tell that person?
Number one, keep showing up at the gym. Keep showing up, MK, with you and your team, because when you're in the gym, your mind opens up. And when your mind opens up, your soul opens up, and you start connecting with people. And folks like you, MK, you're like, hey, have you looked into this event or this retreat? Or hey, you get in a conversation, usually after class, and someone's in this deep introspection of, man, I feel like I want to do this with my career, my life. And you're like, I was just reading an article or listening to a podcast, and there's this event or this thing going on. Have you looked into it? Then you're opening up. Usually when you work out, it opens up your mind and your spirit to receiving. So that's number one. And then two is, I think you have to be an avid reader or ingester of like podcasts like this. When you listen, you're like, hey, that's a good idea. I never thought of that. And next thing you know, your mind starts going and thinking outside the box, because we're always going to revert back to our comfort zone. But
Mhm.
when you challenge yourself with a few people in your life that are going to challenge you to step up and do things, it doesn't not mean, when I say step up, you got to go to another level in your career or your finances or in any area of your life. It really is, how do you step into the best version of you, whatever you're supposed to do? Is it as just a as a your physical health and your energy, you want to get to another level with your energy and mindset, and you want to become even more resilient, or you want to increase your career, or you want to grow your finances? That's all part of it. But how do you play that next level? And ultimately, how do you step into that room because you're nervous or you're scared? Guess what? I would say run to the heat. Run to the heat. You got
Mm,
to run to it. You got to face some of those fears and demons sometimes. And listen, I'd had them as well. And I share openly, even the last few years during the pandemic, like, man, as my calling was going deeper, guess what was rearing its ugly head? Like everything that the enemy could block was coming in my face. And
yeah.
it was like, is this what I'm supposed to do? Or is this like a sign that I'm not supposed to do it? Right. And we get these things. And ultimately, when you become convicted of, no, this is a calling I need to step into, um, then that is the calling that you need to heed too. So regardless of whether someone, is just in the community and they got their job and their family and they're balancing as a father or mother on that, I do believe there's always another level. And that's what I've shared with my athletes who I work with. You mentioned some of them, or some of the, the folks I work with. It's there's always another level. And I truly
Mm,
believe there's always another level. And I don't care if you're 25, if you're 52, if you're 73, or you're 83, like one of my clients. There's always another level, personally and professionally. And to me, it's like, I don't want to die someday. And I hear the man up top being like, man, you never stepped into that best version of you. I had something else planned for you. And you never stepped into it because you were scared and you were content with doing things the way that you do them. And you never stepped in that. That's the one thing I don't want to hear. And I don't think anyone wants to hear that. But how do you step into that with faith that this is what I'm destined to do?
yeah. Oh, that's so great, and that's so valuable for our listeners. I think sometimes what we see at the gym is our clients, they don't know what that next level should be for
Mhm.
them. Like,
Yeah.
they're so worried about figuring out, like, what am I supposed to be doing? What does that next level look like? And instead of worrying about that, they need to just keep showing up every day.
Yeah.
Because the more you show up, and like you mentioned, walk into the fire, walk into the flames, and put yourself in that uncomfortable zone, just step outside your comfort zone. If you can just do that more and more each day, you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
You'll discover what that next level is. But
Oh, yeah.
you're not always going to know what it is when you're going through it. And you've said multiple times, like, live a life worth telling a story about, and like, it's about the journey. And if you're not doing something to make you uncomfortable every day, there's going to be no story.
Mm,
So you
mm,
have to just step
preach,
into the fire.
preach it, preach it. 100%. When I said, even if you're 83, um, the man that was said is 83, one of my clients, his name is Pastor David Jeremiah. I don't know if your people watch TV or not, but if they watch TV every Sunday morning, Pastor Jeremiah is on TV. You got Osteen, you got Jeremiah. Well, I've had the blessing to train Dr. J. I call him Dr. J, Dr. Jeremiah, the last decade. And he's one of those clients that I should be paying him to train him. I get so much wisdom from the
Yeah.
guy. But one thing he said, and it relates to this, is he said, when I can't do what I want to do, I do what I can do.
Mm,
When I can't do what I want to do, I do what I can do. That means there's days you don't feel like working out. Go work out.
but you
There's
can do
days
it.
there's days you don't feel like journaling or writing or praying or doing what you do. Do what you can do today. There's days where you're physically in pain and you can't do it. Do what you can do. When I
Mhm,
can't do what I want to do, I do what I can do, because when I do what I can do, you're going to do what you want to do.
mhm.
I hope y'all caught that. Hope
That
y'all caught that. You
so
may
good.
want to look at the timestamp, go back and replay that, because man, when he told me that, I was like, man, Doc, that is so good. Because I don't care who you are, there are days we don't feel like working out, but you got
Right.
to show up. There's days when, as a dad of 3 kids, you want to pull your hair out, like, right? You do what you can do. You do what you can do so you can get to where you're supposed to go.
I When I hear that, that to me is like giving me permission to simplify life.
Yes.
Because like like everything, we are living in a world right now where we're so like we're feeded this information, whether it's about your health and fitness, whether it's about the business that you're building and that you're growing. It's like we see all these things, we think we should be doing it all, but we should be focused, like you said, on doing what we can do, not just focused on what we want to do and what we can't do and what's so far off in the future. I love that so much. That might be the title of the podcast.
Well, and MK, this is a fact. This is research, and I've done a lot. I share to have a book and on that on Get Your Mind Right. But most people are working on a threshold and full capacity of 60%.
Mm,
So we all think, and trust me, I get this. Like, man, I'm maxed out. I'm tapped out. I can't do much more. But the research shows that our threshold and full capacity is typically operating at 60%. So you're like, no, there's no, I'm more than that. Okay, so let's say you're 70%. That means there's another 20 to 30, maybe 40% of capacity that you're not really going into. That means that you and I and anyone listening in, there's another level.
yeah.
But it starts with that micro, I call it the win the day mentality. And when you win the day, because I got to do this, work out, I get my quiet time, I've got my 5 things for the day I've got to do. These, I call them needle movers. When you have your needle movers and you do the needle movers, all the other stuff you got to do, it's all part of, living and being a parent, if you're a parent, or, whatever it is that you do. But, when I can do when I can't do what I want to do, I do what I can do. I do
Mhm.
what I can do. And when you do what you can do, then you're going to be able to do what you want to do.
Yes, yes. So I want to talk about winning the day and some of the foundational habits and traits that you have observed over the years with these top athletes that you've worked with. Like, what are some of the traits that they have that our listeners could easily apply, or even just one or two things they could start doing?
Mm, mm. Some of it was going to sound rhetorical, but I think as a person of discipline, you've got to be somewhat mundane in some of your habits. Doesn't mean all of it, and doesn't mean you have to live a boring life. No, but um, at least with the athletes, I tell them this. You have one opportunity to work out a day. You have 5 opportunities to not eat good in a day. So, like nutrition, what are those habits nutritionally that we need to clean up? Now, depending on the level of specificity that you want to get in nutrition, anything from, okay, eat this, not that, to working with a nutritionist and doing sensitivity tests and finding out what you shouldn't be eating based on what our naturopathic doctor or a nutritionist would say. Nutrition is a really important aspect, and I've the longer I've done strength and conditioning and training and life coaching and all this, man, nutrition, there's a hormonal physiological response that happens. But I'll share this, just some habits. And this is where I say it might get a little rhetorical, but morning routine. It's up, but everyone's talking about morning routine, but just establish a morning routine. And whether that's 30 minutes of your time, 10 minutes of your time, or an hour of your time, what does it look like? So I encourage even my highest level athletes, own your morning. When you own your morning, you own your day. When you own your day, you own your week. When you own your week, you own your month, you own your quarter, you own your year. Own the morning. And if it means you got to get up at 5 a.m. to own your morning for 30 minutes, then own your 5 to 5:30 or your 6 to 6:30. And what does that look like? I don't know. Maybe it's 3 minutes, 5 minutes of journaling or prayer time or meditation, or maybe you make that part of your workout. And when you're working out, if it's at Fit Body Boot Camp, and you're at your workout, you're going to spend an extra 5 minutes afterwards and you're going to go for a walk, and that's your meditative walk, whatever that is. And then you're going to get, your nutrition in. What is your nutrition going to look like? I like to bookend my days with morning and evening routine. I tell my guys and gals this that I'm training my athletes is your evening routine is often not talked about, but your evening routine sets up the morning success. So, what does your morning routine look like? But let's revert back to your evening routine. I go by a 3-2-1 methodology. 3-2-1. 3 hours before you go to sleep, eat. 2 hours before you go to sleep, no more work. 2 hours before you go to sleep. And that last hour of your day is all about personal care. Now, this is where it gets tough. That last hour, what does that mean? Start shutting down your phone. Don't be in the bed watching TV, all the blue light. Read a good book. Do 10 minutes of flexibility yoga type stretching. How about spending a little time with the missus or your spouse? And that last hour, whatever that means to you, take a hot bath. That's the hard part, because most of us get into a routine, a habit of, we're scrolling the phone, checking out the IG, we're watching the TV's in the background, we're not even connecting with our spouse, we're not reading a book, we're not praying or meditating or doing that. And the next thing you know, you wake up and you're exhausted and you're tired the next day and you're like, I don't feel like doing my morning routine. Well, can you do the 3-2-1 And if you can bookend your days with solid morning routine, but even maybe more importantly, that evening routine, then your day and what your habits you're going to choose in between there are crucial. And I'll just end with this on the evening routine is because I know someone thinking 3, 2, 1, that's 3 hours of like evening routine. Yes. But yeah, you can kind of condense it. I've got all these high performers like, man, that's crazy. All right, well, maybe then the last 30 minutes of your day is shut down your phone
Right.
and
Start
you don't
small.
because what I'm going to challenge y'all. What's the first thing you touch in the morning and the last thing you touch at night?
Your phone.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. That's NG. Like, we don't really want to be just touching our phone the first thing in the morning and the last thing in the evening. That's not.
Mhm.
So think about, man, can I get a little tighter with my last 30 minutes, last 60 minutes of the day? And maybe the first 30 minutes or 60 minutes where, hey, I'm going to get up and I'm going to, before I even, one of my rules, I've got rules of my life. And one of my rules is don't turn on the phone the first thing in the morning. I do my morning routine first. Otherwise, I know this. If I, and this is by experience and messing up for years, if I get on my phone, it's over. It's done.
Mhm.
Like it's done. Instagram, emails, texts, they just start coming. Next thing you know, I just lost 20, 30 minutes of stupid scrolling and checking everything. And I'm reacting to everyone else's routine versus me getting up, getting my devotional, you know, getting into everything I'm going to get into of just my workout. Because if I don't get my workout in, my little bit of quiet time, the day is going to be disheveled. I'm going to be pulling my hair out, just thinking, man, like all this stuff, because I lost my sense of just stability. It's now
Right.
all anxious and that. So those are some of the thoughts I do and habits I use with not only my athletes, but any of my clients or people who follow along with what I advocate.
I love that. I want to go back to the 3, 2, 1 really quick because as a mom,
Mm.
and I'm speaking from experience, I have very much tried to redefine my morning routine more times than I can count to set me up for a good day with the kids and with, balancing the workload and everything that I have going on. And one thing that I find is like, it doesn't matter how early you go to bed or how hard you try, something happens with your kids and then it messes up your morning routine. It messes up your morning and your day if you let it. Like, you can't let it. You have to just say to yourself, like, this is not going to mess up my day. I'm going to move past this. But one thing I want to say is I can see where having an evening routine, a nighttime routine could be even more important than a morning routine as a mom because you can usually control what happens at night. Even if your kids go to bed a little bit later than normal, you can
Mm.
stay up a little bit later if you need to have that quiet time, to shut down your phone, to pray, to do your devotionals, to journal, to meditate, to stretch. Do all the things that you need to do. For me, like at night, I prep for the next morning because you never know what kind of night you're going to have. So I'll do like, packing the lunches, setting
Yep.
out the waters, the breakfast prep, all of that. And I think like not enough time is spent on the evening routine, as you mentioned, because we're all focusing on the morning routine. But we know that if we don't go to bed early enough and something happens, the morning routine, it goes out the window.
Out the window, and you don't get your sleep. And if you're not
Yeah.
sleeping, nothing else matters. And
Right.
then hey, as you're sharing that, it makes me think you don't have to be perfect with all this,
Right.
and you don't have to do all of it. You don't have to do everything. Find what works for you. And maybe one night you want to, while you're packing the lunches, listen to an inspiring, maybe it's a podcast, maybe it's a book on tape, maybe it's an inspirational message. But going in your ears is something good versus just watching some reality show on TV because it's mindless. Nothing wrong with having some mindless time, but I don't like having that mindless time. I don't think it's good for your productivity and performance when it's the last thing in the evening and first thing in the morning. That's not going to allow you to bookend your days properly.
Yeah. That's awesome. Any other habits that you've seen your athletes adopt that have been, beneficial to their training?
It's probably more the ones that they have gotten rid of, or habits of. I mean, again, these are more. You asked the question on the athletes, but
Yeah.
I'm always like, hey, listen, if you want to perform at your best, I'm talking athletically. Well, it's life too, but cut out drinking.
Mhm.
That means, okay, what's the environment? Are you going out at night? And we're talking now 20 and 30 somethings, because
Right.
if you're a 33, 36-year-old athlete that got a fighter fighting Conor McGregor coming up here, like you talk about going into into a tunnel vision of I'm going to the biggest fight of my life as an MMA fighter. um, your habits need to be so dialed in with everything you're doing, physically, nutritionally, mentally, all of these aspects. But when you think about that, what are you willing to give up and do, and who are you willing to put around your fortress, your 3 to 5 people that are going to call you out and make sure that if you choose, you're not going to drink at all, or you're only going to confine drinking to the weekends, and you're going to have 1 or 2 glasses of wine a night, or whatever that is. Those things for me that are about performance,
Mhm.
ditching alcohol or significantly reducing alcohol, food wise, that we amp up food, that you're getting enough protein, that you're getting rid of, depending on the level of athlete. When we get tested, many of them might be gluten sensitive. So we're dialing in nutrition to the point where you're looking at those things and getting in your proper fats. And, the habits come down to, let's get the plan, and then let's be disciplined on the plan to follow it. Because when you get lazy with the plan, then you start sinking down again to what's just comfortable. And that's not always a great place to just hang all your time. It's just where you're comfortable.
Mm. Yes, getting outside that comfort zone. It's what it's all about. Got it.
It's so easy for someone to say it.
Yes.
But when you have to start sacrificing drinking, having a couple of glasses of wine at night, most nights of the week, or, you love the Italian food, no problem. I do too, but that we're not just pounding heavy, rich foods regularly. When, bad habits, you mentioned like your kids, depending on the age of the kids, what I've always battled the kids with is, now my kids are 21, 18, 15 now. They've gotten through the young ages, but now it drives me nuts when they got their phone in their bed,
Mm.
and just like it's bedtime, and they're like just scrolling Snapchat. I'm like, how can I take some of the things I do and make sure, like, you're going to lose that phone, because who's paying for that phone? Like, I'm going to take that phone,
Yes.
but easier said than done. But as a parent with your kids, I mean, one of the most important things that we, or at least I can do as a parent, is how do you teach your children in the way they should go, not just that they're conforming to what everyone else is doing because of the habit and drug of social media and all the garbage that's on the phone that is a drug.
Mm.
It takes discipline, significant discipline now, to try to protect your energy, your mindset, and life, just so that we can live, as you said, simplify it. How do you
Right.
simplify it so that we can really live it?
Right. And I think people are craving that today. I mean, based on what I'm seeing and the people
Mm.
that I'm spending a lot of time with, we're craving that simplicity because in a world, as I mentioned, where we're just overloaded with information and how we should be doing things. And we talk about parenting. I mean, I can totally see where when I am focused on my healthy habits that are helping me show up every day as the best mom, as the best business owner, as the best wife, those habits are spilling out into the lives of my kids. And like an
Absolutely.
example of this would be over Christmas break. My kids are young. I mean, they're 2 and 5. And, Christmas break was wild. Schools were closed for 3 weeks. I was like counting down the hours till bedtime some days. And like, I will fully admit that. But
Yeah.
there were nights where my daughter would fall asleep in our bed watching TV. And then when school started back up a few weeks ago, she's like, well, after bath time, she's like, well, I want to watch TV. I'm like, nope, we got school tomorrow, girlfriend. We are not watching TV. And she's like, well, you let me do it, last week. And I'm like, well, we're not doing that anymore. And she got into that routine. She got into that habit of doing that. And same goes for us. We'll scroll Netflix, put it on, fall asleep watching Netflix. What happens the next day? You wake up, you're groggy, you're mad at yourself for staying up late and doing that. And so it's like the things that we're doing as adults, it very much applies to everything that's going on in our children's lives as well. And we
Mm.
have to be that role model for them. We
Yeah.
really have to.
So good, MK. And I want anyone to know, we don't always have to be perfect. I'm
No.
not perfect. I think the moral of the story here is, and if you got dreams that you're like, you want to feel better, you want your energy to be better, you want to be a little more productive, you don't want to be overwhelmed. It comes back to discipline and habits of how can we clean some things up? Because if you don't change anything, then nothing's going to change, right? Like, like we've got to, it's easy to just let the world kind of consume you. And next thing you know, you're just a product of the world versus here's how I want to live my life. And if you can set some guidelines and almost some statements with your kids, because that's the hardest thing with our families and our kids is, man, like, how do you just not be like everyone else all the time and just
Mm,
watch umpteen hours of TV a day and scrolling for hours? Like, it's just mindless, dumb time that makes us not smart. So to me, it's we got to battle for our mindset. We got to battle for it. Like, they'll take it. When I say they, the forces of social media and the phone and the world, all this stuff going on, you got to battle for your mindset.
yes. Okay. So while we're talking about, battling for our mindset, scheduling our day, all the foundational habits that we need to set for ourselves, I want to tell everybody about this amazing planner that you came out with this year. This is
Mm,
the God Sized Dreams Planner. Think, Dream, Do. And if you
mm,
guys have not checked this out, we will make sure to link it in our show notes. But I want you to tell all of our listeners what inspired you to craft this and
mm.
tell us a little bit about what they can get out of it, how they could benefit from it.
Yeah. MK, thank you. I mean, truth be told, I've been doing a version of this for about 15 years. I call it my annual strategic plan. So usually the end of the year, the beginning of the year, the first couple months, I spend time really dreaming and writing. I think writing creates clarity. Clarity precedes genius. And when you write things down and you can see it, it's very, very powerful. So I've been doing this for years. And over the last 3 years, this is my third year I've put it out publicly. But every year it changes. And it's kind of got phases. The first phase is the annual strategic plan, which there's in this year's section, there's three required aspects or parts of my annual strategic plan. And those are a look back, it's this year's goals and everything you're doing, your big five, your theme. And I've got a bunch of questions on this year of how you're going to maximize this year. And then your life. And the life is something that most people don't look at to answer the questions about what's your legacy going to be and what are the things that you're going to actually step into. And I go through all of my life questions and trying to keep it as simple as possible yet as deep as possible so that people do it, of creating your best life, your life sentence and your tombstone statement and your big five for life, and the things you want to accomplish. These are not questions that you typically answer, but those are three of the sections in the annual strategic plan. And then in the planner, we go into my system that I actually coach people with, and I give it away in the planner. It's my 10 forms of wealth that's done once a month, the first of the month, and you're 3 and 30. And these are just 1 to 3 goals every 30 days of how you can stay on point for this next month. This month that you're in, these next 30 days, you're 3 and 30, 1 to 3 goals in the next 30 days that are going to help you in your 10 forms of wealth. And when I say wealth, it's not just money, it's wealth of mindset, heart set, soul set, and your physical set on it. And then it's an actual planner itself. Like, I'm an old school guy. Like, my planner's like, I got writing and my schedule from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. I'm leaving before that and after that open, but I've got my everything in there, and I call it the big five. Like, have your big five for the day. And I know this: if you got your big five for the year, your big five for your quarter, your big five for the month, and your big five for the week, and the big five for the day, and you're executing and just chipping away and stacking wins and stacking wins, stacking wins. When I do next year's annual strategic plan, I'm like, wow, I got some significant things done. Not just quote successful. I got some significant things done because it was all based on a plan. As we know, plans can go awry. But when you have a plan and you're really gearing towards something in all aspects of your life, example, in your circle of genius or your love, it's like, I got to get date night twice a month or whatever that is. If you do that, your relationships are going to be more fruitful. I
Right.
got to get, for one of mine is, was with my daughter, my 15-year-old daughter, 2 boys and a girl. I'm fighting for time with a 15-year-old daughter. I don't know about those of you with teenage daughters. I'm like, it's a priority. I've got to get the time. So it goes down in here, and I'm going to prioritize how I'm going to get time with my daughter. Otherwise, I'm not going to get it because friends are important, social media is important, all this stuff is important, but
Yeah.
time. So anyway, that's kind of it in a nutshell. It's my life essentially in my planner. And there's a lot of people who, like yourself, MK, are really dialing in their systems to make sure they can maximize their health and their happiness.
Yeah. And I want to tell our listeners a little bit more. So for like me, what I love about this so much is, as you mentioned, like it's blocked off from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And it goes into detail. So like every single page, like you have an area where you can write like what you have going on that day. And you can say, like if you have an appointment or a reminder and what needs to be done today. And I think like there are a lot of clients at the gym that are parents, and whether they work or not, they're trying to manage so many things. And
Mm,
sometimes we get to the end of a day and
yep.
we ask ourselves, what did we actually get done today? And we might not be speaking very positively to ourselves. The dialogue may not be very nice, and we might say nothing. We didn't get anything done today. But
Mm, mm,
truthfully, you probably did 20 plus things. You probably did laundry, you probably mopped the floor, cleaned the toilets, and those are actually significant things. If you are a stay-at-home mom, like the house revolves around you and your efforts and your energy. And so I think when you write these things down, you're tracking it. And there's this, and I am just totally drawing a blank. What's the saying? If what gets uh
what
there's a
gets
saying,
measured gets done. What gets measured,
what's
yeah,
gets measured, yeah, gets
yeah,
done. And so it's like you have to write these things down to serve as a reminder to yourself of, wow, look what I did accomplish today. Even
yeah.
if it is so tiny, like mopping the floors or doing the laundry. I think so many people could
Huge.
benefit from just writing it down and seeing it right there in front of you.
Yeah, MK, you're spot on. And what I would say is this: is if you share at least the strategic plan with your spouse or your
Hmm.
significant other, it really goes a long way because when my wife Melanie knows what I'm doing, it actually helps our communication. It helps her understand me because she's like,
Right.
"Man, you're crazy. Like, what are you doing?" Well, if she hears me with my goals and visions and what I want to do to impact quote 10 million people or whatever, then she understands how everything reverse engineers back into how am I spending my time? And why are you so disciplined with that? Because time is finite. We don't have it. So I'm going to make sure that this year, if my theme, like this year, my theme is iconic. And iconic is an acronym. And
Mm.
when I share that with Melanie, my big five for the year, and she knows my big five for the life, it helps her understand. So she's not like, what is he doing? And the same for her goals are different than mine. And that's a good thing. So that when I understand her, I can support her.
Hmm.
And I know the, the family, what she's doing with our family, like yourself, MK. And hey, one of our big five has to do with our house. Like, I have no desire to do anything with my house. But she like the home, like she has a goal to do some renovations. Like I don't even think about that. Like if there's food in the refrigerator, I'm happy,
You're
right?
happy.
It's so I can understand her better and she can understand me better. So it's also a great communication tool that you can use with a spouse or someone that's significant, special in your life.
Yes, yes. I really appreciate how you mentioned that, because one thing we see in the gym is our clients, they come to us and they say, "Oh, I want to lose 20, 30 pounds." And we'll ask them, "Well, what's your support system like? Is your
Mm,
spouse on board? Are they trying to lose weight as well, or trying to, live a healthier lifestyle?" And sometimes they say no. And usually 9 times out of 10, it's because they haven't properly explained to their significant other why that goal is so important to them. Their
that's right.
significant other doesn't understand. So if they can just help them understand better, then they
That's it.
might have more support from that other person, whether they're going to work on themselves or not. You
Mm.
can't be alone in these goals, or when something does go wrong, you can easily just fall off the wagon and never get back on.
Yeah, that's so good. MK, I once heard, and I use it all the time in my own coaching of the five whys. I don't know if you ever heard this,
Mm.
like five
Yes.
whys. When someone tells you their goal, like I want to lose 30 pounds,
Why?
and it's not, yeah, it's like, okay, well, great. Why do you want to do that? And when they tell you and they're like, well, why? Usually by the third, definitely by the fifth, you really understand why someone wants to do anything.
Mhm.
And that's the important part because that's the emotional connection. So when you can understand really why someone wants to do something, like, why do I want to impact 10 million people? It's not just a statement. Oh, okay, great, great. Go support those people. Well, why is that? Well, because I want to be significant and make my imprint in the universe. Well, why is that? So by the third, fourth, definitely by that fifth time, you ask someone why. You understand what they're writing down and why they're writing it down. And if you can support someone to that level, now that's a great support system because you understand the why, which is way deeper than, well, you said you want to lose 30 pounds. Stop eating that. It's
Yeah.
easier said than done, but why is it? Now all of a sudden you can go to some deep levels.
Yes, the 5 whys, the 5 whys. All
Hmm.
right, well, this has been so great. I feel like I could have you on multiple times to talk about all of the knowledge that you have gained throughout the years and the lives that you've impacted. So inspired by you. Is there any like words of wisdom that you want to leave our listeners with? Any last words?
Well, MK, thank you. And I'd be honored to come back at any time. Well, there's so many things, but one of the things I've been really resonating with lately, it has to do with the crest of the wave determines the depth of the valley, and the depth of the valley determines the crest of the wave. So whether you're at a high right now or a low of lows, it's life is a cycle. It goes up and down, up and down, up and down, and we're never going to be at the crest of the wave. So if you're on the crest of the wave now, where things are really good, be humble about that and enjoy it, but know that that could also determine the depth of the valley. And if you're in the valley right now, then just know that you got to keep going. You got to keep fighting. Reach out to someone like MK or her team, her family. Reach out to myself, DM me, whatever it is. But when you're at the depth of the valley, you got to keep going because the depth of the valley also is going to help you understand the crest of the wave. And I
Mm,
know that when you say anything else on mine, I share that because I just was at a men's retreat here recently, and it's amazing how many people are battling right now, men and women, right? But how many people are battling right now, and they don't know that. I had during the pandemic, like everyone, a real tough bout with my back. My back reared its ugly head after 25 years, going all the way back to that football injury, and it was a really tough time where I faced potentially a 14-hour surgery on a back that the back deformity specialist was like, "What the heck did you do?" And it was a really dark time, MK, really dark. And here I am, the quote motivator and the one that's always up. I just wrote a book called Get Your Mind Right, and all of a sudden my mind wasn't right, and
mm,
I'm trying to use my own stuff of like, this is why I'm battling right now of
mm,
this. And 2020 through 2023, those are some valleys and deep dark valleys, until ultimately coming out of it. um, and man, in the last 7 months of coming out of that and really saying, wow, okay, I got like new life and a new vigor for even the things I've always preached and trying to reach more people in that. Just remember that the crest of the wave determines the depth of the valley, and the depth of the valley determines the crest of the wave. Wherever you are on the wave or you're in the valley, keep going and keep showing up and go, listen to what MK is saying. Cause I know MK, you're delivering great wisdom here on Beyond the Scale podcast and all that you do at the gym and with Fit Body Boot Camp, and you're doing amazing things. So kudos to you and your team.
Well, thank you. And I think that's just such a beautiful reminder for anybody. It doesn't matter what they've gone through. It's just you're going to have your high moments and something crazy is going to happen that's unexpected in life and
Mm,
you might get down again and then
mm,
just know that that's temporary. And
yeah.
I have experience within since COVID as well. So many moments where I thought were permanent, but it was temporary pain that I was experiencing. But in that time, in that moment, it felt so permanent
Yeah.
and nothing's permanent and
Yeah.
there's going to be highs and lows continuously throughout the journey.
Yeah. Well, yeah, 100%. Um, so I was processing this in Q4 of 2023 of like, what does all this mean? Like when you're going through pain or you're in a valley,
Mm,
and in the outside world might be like, oh man, like you said, oh, he trains all these athletes and all this stuff. Everyone's got something.
right.
Everyone's got something. The more I coach, not just the highest level athletes, but entrepreneurs, moms, and that, everyone's got something.
Hmm.
So as I was processing this and really like getting lit on fire on the inside of like, where does all this go? Um, I started writing because writing to me is prolific. I can really just get emotional and get deep. I started my next book, and that book's not coming out for a while. It's going to come out in June of 2024. I'm in the middle of writing it right now. But MK, when I share with you, you won't believe what I write because I'm like, should I really write this? Like, do I want to share this? Do I really want to share this?
Yes.
And yeah, well, I'm not gonna share it now because it's a long, long, long story. But in the book that I'm writing, when you're sharing something or you're getting emotional as I think about it, but when you are so transparent and real with people, whether it's a small circle, a big circle, or you're like, man, I'm gonna write it in a book, I'm gonna put it out in the world, and what are they gonna think? Like, you have your ego and you have your facade, whatever it thinks you are, and how people can build you up. And then you're like, man, if they only knew the thoughts I was having, if they only knew how much pain I was really in, if they only knew the battles that I faced on a daily. Well, it's all going on paper right now. Like it's deep. It out of everything I've written, it will be my deepest
Mm,
book. And I share that because don't ever think that whatever you're feeling, no one's ever felt before. Because we look and you're hearing a story even here today. MK is like, oh, this guy's got all together. He rips his habits and he just
right.
wakes up. No, 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 no. No, everything I'm sharing is because of experience of not doing it that way.
Right.
Um, and trying to battle for my own sanity and health, physical health, mental health of like, man, I got to battle for this. Like everyone's got to battle. And I never asked for this. I didn't want this, this pain resurfacing and having to potentially go through a 14-hour surgery. And like, MK gets deep. I'll have to come back for another episode to
Well,
share it
you
all.
said when the book's released, we'll do
Yeah,
a
there
book
we
launch
go. There we
episode.
go. There we go. Follow along. If you guys, as MK said, you can follow along with some of that. Just whether it's on our website or our Instagram or podcast, whatever it is. But I'm in the middle of writing that book right now, and it is deep. It'll come out in June of 2024 here.
Well, I'm excited for it. And yeah, we'll make sure we do an episode to showcase that when it comes out and talk more about those stories.
Well, thank you. And thank you for
Yes.
what you're doing, MK. I know in your community and beyond here in the podcast, you're just putting so much great content and light into the world. So I want to say thank you and honor you for all that you're doing. And I know you and your husband with the family and the businesses and that really is inspiring. So thank you. And I know you got a great community there.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that so much. Todd, where can our listeners learn more about you, the God Sized Dream Planner, what you're doing? Where can they find you?
My website, todddurkin.com. So it's todddurkin.com, TODDDURKIN.com. And then if you're on social media, certainly you can just check out Instagram, my name at Todd Durkin, or Facebook, it's Todd Durkin FQ10 on that. So yeah, Facebook, I do a lot on Instagram. Of course, my podcast, the Todd Durkin Impact Show, but all of that is on my website, todddurkin.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Todd. And thank you to our listeners for listening to another episode of the Beyond the Scale podcast. As always, make sure you check us out on YouTube, Apple Podcast, and Spotify, and share this episode with all of your friends. Until next time, thanks so much.